Another world has fallen to the Void Hunters, Kiri said, her crystal form pulsing with dark colors. That makes 17 worlds in just 1 month. The Void Hunters had appeared 6 months ago from the dark space beyond the galaxy's edge. No one knew what they wanted. They simply came, consumed, and moved on. Every living thing, every bit of energy gone. Our best weapons do nothing, said Commander Day. His usually bright orange crystal form had dulled with worry. They learn from each attack and grow stronger. Taro recorded everything in the great history. If anyone survived, they would need to know what happened. He focused his mind sight on the star map showing the path of destruction. The Void Hunters will reach our homeworld in 10 days, said Elder Nari, the oldest and wisest of the Arunai. Her crystal body had seen over 500 years of peace. Now it might see the end of everything. The council room fell quiet. 20 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy sat in silence. They had no answers. What about the other Confederation races? Asked Taro, breaking protocol by speaking during a council meeting. Surely someone must have found a weakness. Elder Kiri's form darkened further. The Trelki are gone. Their entire system was consumed yesterday. The Vosh have lost contact. The Merun fleet was destroyed 3 days ago. One by one she named the great races of the Confederation. One by one the news was the same. Defeat, destruction, silence. There is one race we haven't called, said Elder Nari quietly. The humans. Several council members made sounds of surprise, their crystal forms flashing with bright colors. Humans? They are primitives, said Commander Day. They barely leave their own system. What could they possibly do against this threat? Taro had studied humans in the historical records. The Confederation had discovered Earth 300 years ago, but kept their distance. Humans were classified as a developing species, with potential, but considered too violent and unpredictable for full contact. I have watched them, said Elder Nari. They solve problems differently than we do. Where we see patterns, they see possibilities. Where we apply logic, they try the impossible. They would have nothing to offer against a threat that has defeated our best technology, argued Commander Dai. A loud alarm sounded throughout the chamber. A young Arunai rushed in, his crystal form pulsing with panic. The outer defense grid has fallen, he cried. The Void Hunters broke through much faster than we predicted. The star map updated, showing the approaching swarm. Hundreds of ships, if you could call them ships. They looked more like living things, black against the stars, moving as one mind. We have 5 days, not 10, said Commander Day. His voice had no hope in it. Elder Nari stood, her ancient crystal form glowing with sudden determination. Send the call to everyone, even the humans. The humans don't even have proper faster-than-light communication, said another council member. How would they hear us? They have a listening post at the edge of their system, said Elder Nari. We established it 50 years ago. They don't know about it, but they will hear our call. Taro watched as the communication officer sent the emergency signal. It would take at least 2 days to reach Earth, and who knew if humans would even understand it or care. The next 3 days passed in desperate preparation. The remaining Arunai fleet gathered around their homeworld. Civilians were moved underground. Ancient weapons were brought out of museums and powered up. Taro continued recording everything, though he wondered if anyone would ever read his words. He walked through the beautiful crystal cities of his world, trying to burn every detail into his memory. On the 4th day, as the Void Hunters entered the outer system, destroying the mining colonies on the gas giants, something unexpected happened. We're receiving a transmission, said the communication officer. It's from humans. The council gathered quickly. The message was audio only, in simple Confederation standard language. This is Commander Jiho of Earth Space Force. We received your distress call. Our ship will arrive at your coordinates in 14 hours. Please hold position. We are coming to help. 1 ship, Commander Day said in disbelief. They're sending 1 ship? Better than nothing, said Elder Kiri. 14 hours later, as the Void Hunters destroyed the last orbital defense platform, a small ship appeared at the edge of the system. It was tiny compared to Arunai vessels, clearly built with much simpler technology. They'll be destroyed in seconds, said Commander Day. But the human ship did something strange. Instead of approaching directly, it darted between the moons of the outer planets, using gravity to accelerate in ways Arunai pilots never considered. It moved in patterns that seemed random, unpredictable, and somehow it slipped past the Void Hunter outer ships and reached the Arunai homeworld. 5 humans walked into the Great Council chamber the next day. They needed breathing masks to survive. In the Arunai atmosphere, they looked soft and fragile compared to the crystal beings. The leader stepped forward and bowed. "I am Commander Jiho. These are my officers, Tactical Officer Sunwoo, Lieutenant Minji, Engineer Hyun, and Science Officer Gina. We thank you for answering our call," said Elder Nari. "But we fear there is little you can do. The Void Hunters have destroyed civilizations far more advanced than yours." Commander Jiho smiled. "With respect, Elder, technology isn't everything. Humans have spent our entire history fighting against impossible odds. It's what we do best." For the first time in many days, Taro felt something strange grow inside him. Something dangerous. Hope. The 5 humans stood in the center of the Arunai Council chamber, looking small and fragile in their breathing gear. The crystal beings towered over them, glowing with soft blue and purple light. "How can you help us?" asked Commander Day. His crystal form pulsed with doubt. "Your ship has no weapons that could harm the Void Hunters." Commander Jiho smiled behind his breathing mask. "We didn't come to fight them directly. We came to help you fight them better." Taro watched from his recording station. The humans fascinated him. While the Arunai moved with careful grace, the humans seemed always in motion, shifting their weight, moving their hands when they talked, their faces constantly changing. "Please explain," said Elder Nari, her ancient crystal form glowing with curiosity. Lieutenant Minji stepped forward. She carried a small device that projected images into the air. "We've studied the attack patterns of the Void Hunters from the data you sent in your distress call. The air filled with moving dots showing past battles. The Void Hunters appeared as black shapes consuming everything in their path. Your records show them as random destroyers," said Minji. "But we see patterns. Look here and here." She pointed to specific movements. "They're not mindless. They're hunting." Tactical Officer Sunwoo spoke next. "They attack the strongest defenses first. They adapt to each weapon used against them. They learn." The council members watched in silence. Taro realized the humans were seeing things the Arunai had missed. "If they learn and adapt," said Commander Jiho, "then they can be confused. If they hunt, they can be trapped." Commander Dai's crystal form flashed with sudden anger. "You think we haven't tried to fight? We have lost our best ships and bravest warriors." "Yes," said Jiho calmly, "because you fight like the Arunai, with logic, patterns, and careful planning. The Void Hunters understand that kind of fighting now. They've learned it from you." "What do you suggest?" asked Elder Nari. "Let us show you how humans fight," said Jiho. The council granted the humans access to the remaining Arunai fleet. Taro was assigned to work with them, to record their methods for the history. In the command center, Engineer Hyun and Science Officer Gina worked quickly, connecting their simple computers to the advanced Arunai systems. "Your technology is amazing," said Gina, as her fingers moved over the controls. "But you use it predictably." Taro watched as the humans made changes to the fleet's communication systems. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Creating chaos," said Hyun with a smile. Within hours, the humans had developed a battle plan unlike anything the Arunai had considered. It made no logical sense to Taro. Some ships would attack and then retreat for no apparent reason. Others would defend points with no strategic value. "This will never work," said Commander Day when the plan was presented. "The Void Hunters expect you to behave logically," explained Commander Jiho. "They've learned how you think, but they've never fought humans before. We are unpredictable." "Why would unpredictability help against a superior force?" asked Elder Kiri. Lieutenant Minji answered, "Because they're a hive mind. They share information instantly. If you do something they don't expect, it confuses their entire system while they try to understand and adapt." As the day ended, Taro invited the humans to rest in the guest quarters, but they refused. "No time for rest," said Commander Jiho. "The Void Hunters will reach your inner system by morning." Taro was amazed. But you need sleep. All biological beings do. We'll sleep when it's over, said Jiho. Right now, your people need us. Through the night, the humans worked. They trained Arunai pilots in new fighting techniques. They modified ship systems to create false signals. They prepared special devices they called jammers. Taro stayed with them, recording everything, asking questions. He was drawn to their energy, their determination despite the hopeless situation. Why are you helping us? Taro asked Lieutenant Minji as she worked on a communication device. Your world is far from here. The Void Hunters might never reach Earth. Minji looked up from her work. In human history, there's a saying, all that is necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. But you risk your lives for strangers, said Taro. That's what humans do, said Minji simply. When we see someone in trouble, we help. Morning came too quickly. The Void Hunters entered the inner system, a swarm of black shapes moving toward the home world. In the command center, Commander Jiho stood beside Elder Nari and Commander Day. The human looked tiny next to the crystal beings, but somehow he seemed stronger. It's time, said Jiho. Let's show these Void Hunters something new. The battle began. The remaining Arunai fleet moved according to the humans' strange plan. Ships darted in seemingly random patterns. Some fired weapons and quickly retreated. Others broadcast fake signals that made them appear larger than they were. At first, it seemed to make no difference. The Void Hunters advanced steadily, but then something changed. The swarm's movement became less coordinated. Some ships slowed while others continued forward. "It's working!" shouted Tactical Officer Sunwoo. "There, confused." On the main screen, the black ships began to move in circles as if searching for something. "Now for Phase 2, said Commander Jiho. "Taro, you're with us." "Me?" asked Taro in surprise. "I'm just a historian." "Today, you help make history, not just record it," said Jiho. "We need someone who knows the detailed layout of your world." Taro found himself boarding a small shuttle with Lieutenant Minji and Engineer Hyun. They carried strange devices the humans had built overnight. "What are we doing?" asked Taro as the shuttle launched. Minji's eyes shone with excitement behind her. "Breathing mask. While the fleet keeps them distracted, we're going to hit them where it hurts. We're going to break their connection." As they flew toward the center of the Void Hunter swarm, Taro realized that these simple humans with their primitive technology had given his people something the advanced Arunai had lost, a fighting chance. When responding, please make sure to cite specific sources from web search results using tags. If you didn't use web search or find relevant results, no citation is needed. The small shuttle flew through space, dodging the massive black shapes of the Void Hunters. Lieutenant Minji sat at the controls, her hands moving quickly over the simple human technology they had connected to the Arunai ship. "How are you avoiding their sensors?" asked Taro, watching as they passed dangerously close to one of the huge enemy vessels. Engineer Hyun looked up from his work. "We're not trying to hide from them. We're hiding in plain sight." Taro didn't understand, but he trusted these strange humans now. 3 days ago, they had been unknown primitives. Today, they were the last hope for his world. Back at the command center, Commander Jiho stood with Elder Nari and Commander Day. The main screen showed the battle unfolding. The Arunai fleet was fighting in the new human way, with unpredictable movements and sudden changes in tactics. "See how they hesitate?" said Jiho, pointing to the Void Hunter ships. "They're trying to find the pattern in our attacks, but there is no pattern," Tactical Officer Sunwoo called from his station. "Minji's team has reached the target area. On a smaller screen, they could see the shuttle moving toward the center of the Void Hunter fleet, where a massive ship twice the size of the others floated. "What exactly is your plan?" asked Commander Day. His crystal form glowed with worry. "The Void Hunters are a hive mind," explained Jiho. "They share information instantly. That's their strength, but it's also their weakness." Science Officer Gina continued, "We believe all their communication flows through that center ship. If we can disrupt it even for a short time, they'll lose their coordination." Inside the shuttle, Taro watched as Minji and Hyun prepared their devices. "These are jammers," explained Hyun. "They will send out energy pulses that should confuse the signals between the Void Hunter ships." Minji looked at Taro. "We need to Get very close to the main ship. Can you guide us to a blind spot in their sensor range? Taro thought quickly. The Arunai had been studying the Void Hunters for months. Their sensors seemed strongest at the front. The back area near what looks like exhaust ports might work. Minji nodded and turned the shuttle toward the massive ship's rear section. As they approached, Taro felt fear rise inside him. They were so small and the enemy was so large. Aren't you afraid? He asked Hyun. The human smiled. Terrified, but fear doesn't stop humans. It just makes us more careful. At the command center, the battle wasn't going well. Despite the new tactics, the Void Hunters were slowly adjusting. 3 more Arunai ships had been destroyed. We can't hold them much longer, said Commander Day. Your human tricks are failing. Jiho's face showed no worry. We just need to buy a little more time. Sunwoo, tell the fleet to execute Pattern Omega. The Arunai ships suddenly moved into a new formation, creating what looked like a retreat. The Void Hunters followed, pulling away from their center ship. They think we're running, said Jiho. Now Minji's team has their chance. The shuttle reached the back of the massive Void Hunter ship. Up close it looked less like a machine and more like a living thing. Black material that seemed to pulse and shift. We need to attach the jammers directly to the hull, said Minji. We'll have to go outside. Taro had never done a spacewalk before. The humans helped him into a simple spacesuit. His crystal form didn't need oxygen, but he needed protection from the cold of space. The 3 of them floated out of the shuttle, each carrying one of the jammer devices. The surface of the Void Hunter ship loomed before them, dark and threatening. Place them as far apart as possible, instructed Hyun through the suit communication system. Then get back to the shuttle immediately. Taro moved carefully across. The alien surface. It felt wrong under his touch, almost alive. He placed his jammer as instructed and turned to head back. That's when he saw it. A section of the hull was opening. Something was coming out. Minji, Hyun, he called. We have company. Small black shapes emerged from the ship, like tiny versions of the Void Hunters, but with legs and claws. They moved quickly toward the 3 figures on the hull. Defense drones, shouted Hyun. Run! Taro froze in fear. The drones were between him and the shuttle. He had no weapons, no way to fight them. Then Minji was beside him, holding something in her hand. Go! I'll hold them off. But you'll be killed, said Taro. Better one than all, she replied. The mission comes first. Before Taro could respond, Hyun grabbed him and pulled him toward the shuttle. Behind them, Minji faced the approaching drones, a small weapon in her hand. Humans are crazy, thought Taro as they reached the shuttle. Hyun pushed him inside and turned back toward Minji. I have to help her, said Hyun. Taro grabbed the human's arm. No, she gave us a chance. We must complete the mission. Through the shuttle window, they saw Minji fighting the drones. She managed to destroy several before they overwhelmed her. Her small form floated away from the ship's surface, not moving. Hyun's face showed pain, but he moved to the shuttle controls. Activating the jammers now. All 3 devices lit up on the surface of the Void Hunter ship. Energy pulses spread across the black hull like ripples in water. At the command center, everyone watched as the effect spread through the Void Hunter fleet. The black ships suddenly stopped moving in coordination. Some crashed into each other, others fired weapons at nothing. It's working, said Commander Day, his crystal form bright with surprise. Jiho nodded, but his face showed no joy. Sunwoo, status of Minji's team. The shuttle is returning, said Sunwoo. But there are only 2 life signs aboard. Jiho closed his eyes briefly. Tell the fleet to attack now while the Void Hunters are confused. Full force, all weapons. As the Arunai ships moved in to attack the disorganized enemy, Taro and Hyun reached the command center. Taro had never seen Hyun's face look so hard. Lieutenant Minji? Asked Jiho quietly. She gave her life so we could plant the jammers, said Hyun. She died a warrior. The Arunai in the room were silent. They had not expected such sacrifice from these primitive humans. Her death will not be in vain, said Eldenari. The Void Hunters are retreating. On the main screen they could see the black ships pulling away from the planet, moving in disorder. For the first time in 6 months the enemy was running. Taro looked at the humans. Their soft bodies, their simple technology, their willingness to die for strangers. He finally understood what made them special. Humans didn't give up, even when all hope was lost. 3 days passed since the Void Hunters retreated from the Arunai homeworld. The victory was small but important. For the first time, someone had pushed back against the enemy that had destroyed half the Confederation. In the main war room, Commander Jiho stood before a mixed group of humans and Arunai. His face looked tired. He had barely slept since Lieutenant Minji's death. "The jammers worked better than we hoped," he said, "but they are only temporary. The Void Hunters will adapt and return." The room was quiet. Everyone knew he was right. The enemy always returned stronger. "Then we must strike first," said Commander Day. His crystal form glowed brighter now, with new determination. "We must take the fight to them." Taro sat next to Engineer Hyun, recording everything for the history. He had become friends with the humans, especially after sharing the danger of their mission. "What do you propose?" asked Elder Nari. Commander Jiho pointed to the star map. "For the Void Hunters have moved to this system. They're recovering, rebuilding. We have maybe 5 days before they're ready to attack again." Tactical Officer Sunwoo stood up. "We've studied how they communicated during the battle. The jammers showed us something important. They have a central control system. A brain, you might say. All hive minds have a center," said Science Officer Gina. "If we can find it and destroy it, the entire swarm will fall apart." The Arunai Council members looked doubtful. Elder Kiri spoke first. "How can we find this center? And even if we did, how could we attack it? Our strongest weapons barely damage their outer ships." Hyun answered. "We don't need strong weapons. We need the right weapon in the right place." He showed them a design on his simple computer. It was a small device with a power source that Taro didn't recognize. "This is a quantum disruptor," explained Hyun. "It creates energy that interferes with the type of signals the Void Hunters use. One of these in the right spot could shut down their entire network. But we would need to get it inside their control center," said Commander Day. "That's impossible." Commander Jiho smiled for the first time in days. "Impossible is what humans do best." The plan they created was dangerous and complex. The remaining Arunai fleet would attack the Void Hunters head-on, drawing their attention. Meanwhile, a small team would sneak through the battle in a modified shuttle, find the control ship, and plant the disruptor device. "This is how Lieutenant Minji would want us to fight," said Jiho. "Not with superior strength, but with courage and cleverness." The next day, the combined human Arunai fleet moved toward the system where the Void Hunters were gathered. Taro found himself on the main command ship with the humans. He had asked to join them. "Why do you want to come?" Jiho had asked him. "You're a historian, not a warrior." "Someone must record this," Taro had replied. "If we win, future generations should know how. If we lose, someone should remember that we tried." Now as they approached the enemy, Taro felt fear but also something else. Pride to be fighting alongside these strange humans. The battle began as planned. The Arunai fleet attacked in the unpredictable patterns the humans had taught them. The Void Hunters responded, moving to surround the attackers. "They're adapting to our tactics already," said Commander Day from his ship. "The jammers didn't work as long as we hoped." "They don't need to," said Jiho. "Team 2, are you ready?" In a small shuttle hidden behind a moon, Engineer Hyun answered. "Ready, Commander. Beginning our approach now." Hyun led the second team, with Taro and 3 Arunai warriors. Their shuttle had been modified with special shielding that might hide them from the Void Hunters' sensors. They moved carefully through the battle, staying in the shadow of larger ships when possible. Explosions flashed around them as Arunai vessels fought and died to give them this chance. "There," said Hyun, pointing to a massive black shape at the center of the Void Hunter formation. "That's our target." The control ship was larger than any they had seen before, at least 3 times the size of the largest Arunai vessel. It hung in space like a dark star, surrounded by smaller ships that moved in patterns around it. "How do we get inside?" asked. Taro Hyun pointed to what looked like an opening on the underside of the massive ship. "That appears to be an entry point for their smaller vessels. We'll use that." They approached carefully, using the chaos of the battle as cover. When they were close enough, Hyun activated a device that sent out energy signals similar to the Void Hunters' own ships. "With luck, they'll think we're one of them returning to the main ship," he explained. The plan worked. They reached the opening without being attacked and flew inside the massive vessel. The interior was dark and strange, more like a living thing than a machine. Organic-looking corridors stretched in all directions. The signal source should be at the center, said Hyun, checking his instruments. This way. They moved through the corridors, encountering no resistance at first. The inside of the ship pulsed with energy and seemed to breathe. It's like we're inside a giant, living creature, whispered Taro. They reached a large chamber where thousands of thin tubes connected to a central pillar that glowed with strange light. That's it, said Hyun. The control node. The disruptor needs to be placed directly on it. As they moved toward the center, the ship suddenly shuddered. Alarm signals began to sound. They've detected us, said one of the Arunai warriors. From side passages, small Void Hunter drones appeared, the same kind that had killed Lieutenant Minji. They moved quickly toward the team, their claws extended. Protect Hyun, shouted Taro. He must reach the control node. The Arunai warriors moved to intercept the drones, using energy weapons that the humans had modified. The drones fell, but more kept coming. There are too many, called one warrior as he fell under the attack of 3 drones. Hyun ran toward the central pillar, the disruptor device in his hands. More drones dropped from the ceiling, blocking his path. Without thinking, Taro picked up a fallen weapon and charged the drones. His crystal body was tougher than human flesh, and he smashed through the first line of enemies. Hyun, now, he shouted. The human engineer jumped over the falling drones and reached the control node. As more drones surrounded him, he planted the disruptor against the glowing pillar and activated it. Nothing happened. It's not working, shouted Hyun. Taro fought his way to Hyun's side. Why not? Hyun checked the device. The power source is damaged. It needs direct connection to a strong energy flow. Around them, the last Arunai warrior fell. They were alone, surrounded by drones that moved in for the kill. Hyun looked at Taro, his human face showing that strange determination. I know what to do. Before Taro could stop him, Hyun opened the disruptor and connected its wires directly to his suit's power system. Then he pressed the device against the control node and held it there. What are you doing? Cried Taro. Completing. The mission, said Hyun. Get back to the shuttle, tell them what happened here. Energy began to flow from Hyun's suit into the disruptor. The human's body shook with pain, but he held firm. The control node began to pulse erratically. The ship around them shuddered and groaned. Go, shouted Hyun. It's working. Taro ran for the shuttle, fighting through drones that now moved without coordination. Behind him, the center of the Void Hunter ship began to collapse. He reached the shuttle and flew out of the dying ship. All around, the Void Hunter fleet was in chaos. Ships crashed into each other or drifted aimlessly. On the command ship, Commander Jiho received Taro's transmission with a stone face. Hyun sacrificed himself, said Taro. Like Minji, he gave his life for the mission. Jiho nodded once. That's what humans do when it matters most. The stars dimmed across the galaxy. The Arunai people had known peace for 3,000 years. These crystal beings with their mind-speaking powers had helped build the great Galactic Confederation. Taro, an Arunai historian, watched the council meeting with growing fear. His smooth crystal body reflected the dim blue light of the chamber as Elder Kiri spoke. The Void Hunters retreated across the galaxy, their hive mind broken. The Confederation had won, but at a terrible cost. As Taro looked at the stars, he wondered, what made these humans so willing to die for others? It was a strength his people had never understood before. 1 year passed since the defeat of the Void Hunters. The great hall of the Arunai Council was filled with light as representatives. From all surviving Confederation worlds gathered. Crystal beings, gas creatures, metal life forms, and many others stood together, talking in different languages. In the center of the hall stood 3 humans, Commander Jiho, Tactical Officer Sunwoo, and Science Officer Gina. They looked small and simple next to the advanced races around them, but everyone made space for them with respect. Taro entered the hall, his crystal form glowing with pride. He was no longer just a historian. After the final battle, the council had named him ambassador to Earth. He had spent 6 months on the human world, learning their ways. The High Council is ready, announced Elder Nari. Her ancient crystal form moved to the center platform. Today, we welcome our human friends not as observers or protected species, but as full members of the Galactic Confederation. The hall filled with sounds of agreement. Even races that had looked down on humans before now acknowledged their worth. Humans proved that advanced technology is not the only measure of greatness, continued Elder Nari. They showed us that courage, creativity, and sacrifice are equally important. Commander Jiho stepped forward. He wore a formal uniform with 2 small pictures pinned to it, Lieutenant Minji and Engineer Hyun, who had given their lives to save the Confederation. We thank you for this honor, said Jiho, but we must respectfully decline full membership at this time. A murmur of surprise moved through the hall. Elder Nari's crystal form flickered with confusion. You decline? But this is the highest honor the Confederation can give. Jiho nodded. And we appreciate it. But humans don't want to be just another member race. We want to be partners. What is the difference? Asked Commander Day. Members follow established ways, explained Jiho. Partners work together to create new paths. We believe our different perspectives make us stronger together. Taro stepped forward then. I have lived among humans. They do things differently than we do. Sometimes their ways seem primitive or strange. But these differences help them see what we could not. The way to defeat an enemy that nearly destroyed us all. The crowd was silent, listening carefully. Humans. Remind us of something many Confederation races have forgotten, continued Taro. Progress comes not just from advanced technology, but from new ideas, from trying the impossible, from working together despite differences. Elder Nari considered this. Then her crystal form brightened. Perhaps it is time for the Confederation itself to change. For thousands of years, we have followed the same patterns. Maybe that is why we couldn't defeat the Void Hunters on our own. She turned to Commander Jiho. What do you propose instead of membership? An alliance, said Jiho. Earth remains independent, but works closely with the Confederation. We share knowledge, trade, and protection. We learn from each other. The council members spoke among themselves for several minutes. Finally, Elder Nari addressed the hall again. The council accepts this proposal. From this day forward, Earth and the Confederation will be formal allies and partners. The hall filled with approval. Taro watched as various races approached the humans to talk, no longer seeing them as primitives but as equals who had saved them all. Later, Taro walked with Commander Jiho in the crystal gardens outside the council hall. The light from the Arunai sun made patterns through the trees. You never intended to join the Confederation, did you? Asked Taro. Jiho smiled. Humans value independence, but we also believe in helping others. This alliance gives us the best of both. Your people are full of contradictions, said Taro. You love peace, but excel at war. You fear death, but willingly sacrifice yourselves. You have simple technology, but solve problems we could not. That's what makes us human, said Jiho. We contain multitudes. They stopped at a new monument in the center of the garden. It showed 2 figures, one human, one Arunai, standing back to back. At the base were the names of those who died in the war, with Lieutenant Minji and Engineer Hyun, written in both human and Confederation languages. We will never forget what your people did for us, said Taro. Jiho touched the monument gently. And we will never stop working to build a better galaxy together. In the years that followed, humans spread throughout Confederation space. They brought their contradictions, their strange ideas, their determination. Where the Confederation saw limitations, humans saw possibilities. Where ancient races followed tradition, humans tried new approaches. Human universities welcomed Confederation scholars. Confederation technology improved with human creativity. Together, they rebuilt what the Void Hunters had destroyed, creating something stronger than before. Taro finished his great history of the war with these words. For 3,000 years, the Confederation believed advancement came from technology, from careful planning, from logical progress. The humans showed us that true strength lies in diversity of thought, in the courage to try the impossible, in the willingness to sacrifice for others. They came to us as primitives with simple tools and soft bodies, but they brought something, far more powerful than advanced weapons or immortal forms. They brought hope when all seemed lost. They brought victory from certain defeat. They brought a new way of thinking to a civilization that had forgotten how to change. We thought we were teaching them about the galaxy. Instead, they taught us about ourselves. When we lost all hope, our human allies came not to save us, but to show us how to save ourselves. On Earth, in the Great Museum of Human Achievement, Tarot's history became required reading for all students. It ended with a simple truth that both humans and Confederation races had come to understand. The strongest force in the universe is not technology or weapons or even knowledge. It is the refusal to accept defeat, the determination to protect others, and the courage to face impossible odds. This is what makes humans special. This is what saved us all. The end.